The approach to Whissonsett Church is particularly striking. A long sweeping area of open grassland like a village green known as the camping land, where the medieval game of camp used to take place, which I think was like a very rough and boisterous version of rugby without the ball, something like that, the camping land. And that introduces you to the majestic site of St Mary's Church, often catching the sun as you approach on the south side. And when you come into the church, the inside is also rather open and lovely and full of light, particularly here in the nave. Big windows, a kind of open plan design. There might once have been a north aisle and a south aisle adjoining the nave, as you can see evidence of in the stonework. But now it's just one big grand nave area and a slightly darker chancel ahead in a nice way, which is adorned with some interesting Victorian stained glass. It probably has to be said that the most notable feature here inside Whissonsett Church is something that is completely unique in the county of Norfolk, as far as we know. It is a Saxon era stone cross carved in a beautiful Celtic-y knotwork design. It's over 1,000 years old. Mostly such crosses, which would have been a bit more common 1,000 years ago, tended to simply be broken up and reused in the rebuilding of churches following the Norman conquest. But this one is a rare treasure, a rare survival. It perhaps stood on the north side of the church, marking an area where burials were taking place 1,000 years ago, and it could be that it simply fell over, and over time the grass grew over it, it got buried under the turf, and at the beginning of the 20th century the cross was discovered by chance by a grave digger digging a new grave. And so it finds its place now inside the church in this niche which fits rather nicely. This is an area that perhaps would have been the Lady Chapel a few centuries ago, and I guess there could have been a St Mary in that niche once upon a time before the Reformation. The niche stood vacant for a long time, but now the Whissonsett Cross stands in there very nicely. We have a village resident, Trevor Heaton, who is also a professional journalist, who has written a really superb booklet on the Whissonsett Cross, beautifully illustrated and researching its history and its historic significance. And you wouldn't think that perhaps a whole book could be written about one cross, but it is a very good read and very well written by Trevor. Something from Whissonsett's more recent past and more recent history, which is perhaps worthy of note. The Seagrim brothers, sons of the vicar in the early 20th century, who both sadly perished in the Second World War, and one was awarded the George Cross, the other was awarded the Victoria Cross, which I think is a unique accolade for two brothers. And Hugh, who died in Burma and was awarded the George Cross, has a particularly gripping story with his heartfelt Christian faith running through that story in a very graphic way. He was someone who had wanted to be a Christian missionary had he survived the war, but nevertheless in the story of his wartime service and ultimately his death, you do see a lovely illustration of what his faith meant to him. There have been one or two books written about Hugh, which are available. I've written my own little booklet telling his story in a fairly brief way and an accessible way, and he is someone, along with his brother Derek, who appears on our village sign, and that's part of the heritage of Whissonsett that we do very much treasure. This is a church to enjoy, a church that you will feel welcome, and you are very welcome to come along.